So some of us find peace in prayer. Some of us find it on a playlist. Yes, we do. But Miss Wendy Crockett, she finds it on two wheels at 90 miles an hour, 13,000 miles deep into finding out who she is and figuring out what her calling is. 13,000 miles, baby. And today we're going to be digging deep into what it means to ride through your life on your own terms with courage, clarity, and a toolkit full of confidence, because she don't just ride, she rides. Let's go. This ain't your average healing chat. It's healing through conversations with me, Loveli Brown. Real talk, deep healing, zero fluff. Okay. So Miss Wendy Crockett is a world-renowned long-distance motorcycle rider, y'all. She's also a factory-trained mechanic, a writer, and a fierce advocate for living life on your own terms. She's logged an unbelievable 13,000 miles in 11 days and a staggering 80,000 plus miles across the United States. Add to that an additional 20 to 25,000 miles in Australia. Listen, you think you know how this podcast is going to go, but you don't, because the resilience that it takes in order for her to be here and still standing, my goodness, it is going to be so good. Enjoy the podcast. Hey guys, this is Lovely with Lovely Esteem, and welcome back to the Healing Through Conversations podcast today. I'm excited because I get to speak to a person that, okay, so I am very honest. I didn't know about Wendy until 2 weeks ago. And I was introduced to Wendy through a mutual friend, but I don't use the word stalking lightly. I've researched. That's the word we use when it's friendly, right? That's what we do. But I was so intrigued because not only is Miss Wendy Crockett a trailblazer, a truth teller, and someone who I honestly, after having a conversation with her yesterday, I feel like she has tapped into what it means to find your healing journey on your own. It makes a difference I think healing looks different when you do it on your own terms versus when you do it how people tell you to do it, because nobody can tell you how your spirit rests better than you. But you kind of got to like tap into that. And not only is she a long distance motorcycle rider, and I think long distance like me, I'm like, ooh, 250 miles. My God, we're never going to get off this bike. Wendy is like, 250 miles. Baby, you just woke up. I'm like, I'm a passenger here. I'm just a passenger. But I know that doing 13,000 miles in 11 days, it requires a different kind of resilience, a different kind of just, I want to say strength, but for me, it's more than that, because that there's something that has to happen in your thought pattern and in the way you carry yourself every day that just snaps into place, especially when you are traveling by yourself. So, Miss Wendy Crockett, thank you so much for coming to the podcast. I really appreciate you being here, and I can't wait for our little show to begin.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
I'm like, okay. So, one of the things that I try to do is I always send out questions to my guests because I really want to talk about things that make them happy and things that they're interested in. But I really want to start off with your journey to your love of motorcycle riding and how it's evolved over the years. So, what drew you to motorcycles and how has it really evolved?
I think one of my friends put it best. A lot of people say they came to motorcycles because their friends rode or a significant other rode. And I think I was born this way. for as long as I can remember in my life, motorcycles just spoke to me, just that the freedom and the sound and the solo nature, the inherently solo nature of motorcycles. And so when I was in junior high, I had the Harley Davidson catalog, and I had the pictures taped up on my wall, and it was always something I knew was going to be part of my life. And my mom said over her dead body. So I turned 18 and I moved out and I started buying motorcycles.
Let me say this. I think I resonate with you because I am one of those people who, once I discovered what brought me joy, and I feel like some things we're just, I am one of those people who really believe that my ancestors live in me. And there's some of them give me different strengths, right? There's some of them who say, okay, like one day you just wake up and you know this thing it's not a dream, it's not a thought, it is. And I'm like, okay. So, and some of that is breaking a lot of those toxic generational threads. It's the parent that is fearful, so then they suppress you instead of understanding that this thing is going to help release you and help you become the best version of yourself. So how can you tell us the story of how you went from pre-med into just the career that has really fed your soul?
Well, I had been in kind of a magnet program since high school. So I'd started working in the hospital in a medical careers program at 14 years old. And this was always just the trajectory that I envisioned for myself. And as I got closer to college time, a lot of these doctors now that I've been working with for 4, 5, 6 years, um, started confiding in me. The industry is changing a lot, and the more education I have, the less patient contact I have, the less autonomy I have to do what I feel is best. And I'm not sure that I would do it again. And I really took a lot of that on board and really um, was struggling with whether that's what I wanted to do. And as I'm going through this, I keep seeing ads for Motorcycle Mechanics Institute. And I kept thinking, if my life was different, man, that would be so cool. But like, I am juggling so many plates, right? I'm working my way through college. I have multiple part-time jobs I'm fitting in everywhere I can. I am like just keeping my head above water with all of these things that I have going on. So I decided, I can't disappoint everybody. I'm going to stay on this path. So I rode my motorcycle to the college and re-enrolled for the next semester. And I pulled out of the parking lot at school, and just parallel to the far end of that parking lot, there was a car that ran a stop sign and hit me. And what better place to be hit by a car than in front of a medical school? So I immediately had nurses and doctors in training there to attend to me. But I was brought to the trauma unit that I was working at. And as I'm laying there with all of my clothes cut off of me in front of all of my coworkers,
Mm.
I thought, life is different now. With that one split moment, all of those plates I'd been juggling just came crashing down. My bills are going unpaid. I've missed now this semester between the time I'm in the hospital and the time in the wheelchair. And um, now is as good a time as any to make that change. And so I did. I was actually still using a walker when I started Motorcycle Mechanics Institute.
I love that. And yesterday you were telling me this, and I felt it so deeply when you were talking about just the people who, in their own way, were trying to care. They were trying to help, but they kept discouraging you from riding. And you talked about just needing that 1 hour to ride up the mountain, watch the sunset, and then ride back down. And can you
Mm.
talk about how that really how it fortified your resilience, but also how it helped your mental health?
Yeah, so I grew up in Los Angeles and in a very protective household. So I wasn't allowed to walk anywhere or take the bus or ride my bike. Everything was dangerous, right? So there's never any escape. You're always just kind of in the middle of this crush of angry humanity. And when I got my motorcycle, even really, really early in my riding career, I found that just even like an hour ride. We were on the northern end of the Los Angeles basin, so a half an hour up the mountains, you could find a spot that was just all yours, and
Mm.
look at the lights of the city and watch the sun go down, and just have time to decompress. And that was so important to me with all of these things I had going on in my life that were out of my control. That was mine. That was my moment. And to be in the hospital, and I had, these people that I worked with every day. We weren't really friends outside of work, but we certainly had a rapport. And they're coming in and telling me, you would be stupid to ride again. Not that it's dangerous, not that we always need to be mindful of people that are going to run stoplights, but that I am stupid
Mm.
if I'm going to keep doing this. And I'm thinking to myself, it, who knows? All of us have a time. We don't know when our time is. That wasn't my fault. And I certainly may have reevaluated things if it was something that I had failed to do, that I didn't feel like I could be a safe rider. But it very much had the opposite effect for me. That you have the audacity to sit there and tell me that I'm stupid to start riding again. You don't understand what this brings to my life.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it made having those people feel so free to express that opinion to me really made me take a step back and go, no, I'm not giving this up. And it's not stupid. It enriches my life in ways that you don't know. So
No, and I agree with you so wholeheartedly in the fact that sometimes other people's fears they tend to mirror them, right? So they push them onto us. And instead of learning, I'm always talking about articulation on my podcast, learning how to articulate your feelings, wants, needs, and desires so that you can better advocate for yourself and the people around you. And a lot of people don't learn how to advocate for themselves because either their voices are suppressed or they are stuck in people pleasing or they reach a place where the trauma has been so intense that they don't even have a voice. They don't know how to speak for themselves. Why aren't you following us? Why aren't you getting to a place where you understand that this community, it's about uplifting us. It's about educating us. It's about us having fun. It's figuring out who we are and where we want to be in life. And it's learning how to heal through conversations with people who are just, they are riding full stop into the next best thing in their life. And the fact that you knew in your one, do you guys really think that I would have made it into medical school if I was stupid? Like, let's just start talking. Let's just be real, like, just layman. All right. I wouldn't be here if I didn't know something. So watch your tone and watch how you talk to me. But secondly, don't make something because you have a fear, don't make that my fault. Okay. And I love how you talked about even down to your attorney who also tried to, transfer their fear and doubt onto you. And you were like, hey, you got to go. I need positive people in my life because this isn't going to work out for me, which I'm sure they're looking at a young woman like, well, who the hell are you? You gonna fire me? Like,
yeah. And I've been a rule follower. I've been, pretty quiet and kind of following this path was laid out for me. And it's like I suddenly found my voice. That who are you, my lawyer, to tell me that I don't need to ride again? No, you do your job. And if you're not going to do your job, I'm going to find somebody that will, because somebody's going to get me money to buy a new bike. So.
Look, absolutely. After going through, like, I almost lost my life, and you think that I'm going to listen to anybody now? Like you said yesterday, this is a reset. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm at ground zero. Now I get to rebuild a whole life that it it fits me. It defines who I am. I get to say, okay, I have this second chance at life. What does it look like for Wendy to speak on her own, to think on her own, to feel on her own? What things really bring me joy? What things am I going to delete from my life because it's not going to get me where I need to be? What took you from California to Mexico? And then now you're in South Dakota. Like, how was the transition in riding, and what happened mentally behind that each place you went?
So I've gone from growing up in Los Angeles. I lived in Las Vegas, then went to Phoenix for Motorcycle Mechanics Institute with a trip back to, living in LA in between. I lived in Georgia, South Carolina, back to California, Central California this time. So I've really bounced all over the place. But what I've made a conscious effort to do is every time I move is I keep those people and habits and things that are a positive influence in my life, and I shed the rest. Because it's, especially when we're young, we have a lot of friends of circumstance and
Yes.
convenience. We're going to the same school, or we live on the same block, or whatever it is, and those are not always necessarily the best people in our lives. And certainly I had people in my life that they've always been around, and there's not really maybe a good excuse to jettison them immediately, but then in the course of that move, I'm going to um, be a little more selective
Yes.
about who I surround myself with. And so every move has been a step a step in the right direction.
I love that. And I also love how you yesterday you were like, yeah, so motherhood taught me that I can stand forever. And I laugh because it will resonate with so many people. Sleep deprivation is
Mm.
real. We're out here trying to figure out, okay, so if I catch 15 minutes, it gives me an extra 3 hours that I can be up trying to figure out, why are you still screaming at me? Please, I would like you to not scream at me. But you talked about how motherhood really helped you learn how to function on very little sleep and to be more strategic about your endurance, and how that really helped you get into, well, were you always a long distance rider, or did you kind of
Mm.
get into it after you became a mom?
No, I actually, my daughter was a very long-term project. So she came around in my late 30s. So I'd been, um, and after I went to school and started writing more on my own, I realized I'm like, when you hold a dog over water and they just paddle their legs, that's me with a motorcycle. Like I'm ready to go and I don't have an off switch. So I started doing these really, really long rides and found that I didn't need a destination. I didn't need an excuse. I was just happiest experiencing life from the saddle. And that evolved into long distance riding competitions and things like that. So I had been involved in competitions and long distance riding for about 10 years before she was born. And in any of these events, it is really, really important managing your sleep, managing your fatigue, in all forms, managing your hydration and your nutrition and everything else, time management. So I had been, increasing my skill level incrementally, and then she was born, and it was just like, whoa, there it is. I can I've unlocked the
Oh,
secret
military
superpower.
training for the child. Like, we, we need nothing. Okay, I can live off of homeostasis. Just let the sun touch me. I'm good.
Precisely. Yep. Who knew?
Look, all of us were like, okay, so you just don't sleep. You just stare at it all the time. It just keeps staring it back at you. But you talk about, I love it because I'm like, so many moms are like, oh my God. I just was like, if you could just let me sleep and take a shower, I would just let the water, I'll let the skin absorb the water. So that way I don't even need to drink anything. Just please. But so how did you really, when you started long distance riding, was it more therapeutic? I know that you loved riding motorcycles, but did it prove to you to really have this um, beneficial effects for your mental health and how you were feeling about yourself and the different accomplishments that came along with that?
Well, it was really from the very, very beginning of me starting to ride. It was this just immediate uplifting effect. I mean, it was my therapy. It was I liken it to almost like Ritalin, that you've just got all of this noise and chaos and inputs in your life. And when you get on the motorcycle and you twist that throttle, just everything comes down to this fine point. And you just everything else falls away, and you are just focusing on the now. It's just the ride. It's just that dance of the twisty roads and the smell coming off of the pine trees and, all of those things. Just, eh, it's, you can't put a dollar value on that kind of experience. And so I knew, after my accident, taking that away, not being able to walk for an extended period of time, not being able to ride for an extended period of time, and all of that negative, the feelings and negativity that were creeping back into my world when I didn't
Mm.
have this way to slough them off each day. It was really obvious to me how important it was to my mental health and my happiness and my well-being. So it really just did evolve. I mean, a lot of us have this internal monologue that is not very kind or doesn't know when to shut up.
Mm.
And so I'm gonna go ride until my head clears. And sometimes that's 1,000 miles later. Or, you know.
But I'm here. Let's work it out. But I think for I'm a passenger. I always tell people I don't even lie to people. Whenever people come and my husband rides, he's like really big into riding. And they'll be like, so do you want to ride motorcycles one day? I'm like, I don't know what secondary joy that a passenger has on a motorcycle or anybody else has had. But for me, I meditate on the back of my husband's motorcycle. I really kind of can, I can almost not be on the back of the motorcycle if that makes any sense. Like
Mm.
I can really settle myself in. I can smell the grass. I can smell the cow manure. Woo! You go through some areas and it you don't know in your car the smell that's hitting you. It wakes you all the way up. But just even being able to see the states from two wheels is so different than in the car. Because
Mm.
yes, the convenience of the car, but just it almost the motorcycle to me almost makes you, it feels like you're touching grass a lot of the time versus not because you have so many of the smells and that your senses are really heightened in those moments and just the air touching your skin. I feel like when you drive a baby, you roll the windows down and then put your kid in the car so they can go to sleep and like the wind is
Mm.
hitting you and you're just like okay. And my husband's like, you can't enjoy this ride more than me. I'm like, it's too late. I'm almost asleep. I'm almost asleep. But that was for me, I understand that. And not a I've never ridden a motorcycle as a driver. Always have been a passenger, but I know how much clarity kicks in for me when I'm riding, how quickly I can have an idea for writing or a podcast or resources. I mean, like I am absolutely like I'm almost like Gandhi in my I know I can do this. So can you talk about an
Mm.
unexpected time that you received clarity on the bike and how it may have caused you to pivot or change what you were doing?
One of the moments that stands out for me, and this was 25 years ago, and it still gives me chills to talk about it. But I was going to school in Phoenix, and I just had just an epic bad day to cap off like an epic bad week. And I was like, I just can't anymore. I called in sick to work, called in sick to, school. I'm like, I feel like I feel like I'm going to be sick for about a week. And so I just pointed the bike north, and I just rode, and I rode and rode and rode, and I got actually up past South Dakota up here, and realized at that point, I'm like, oh, it's late October. Okay, it's cold. It's cold up here. It's snowing. I'm gonna turn around and ride back. I don't really know what I'm doing or looking for, but I need to head back towards home, at some point. So I'm back in northern Arizona. It's the middle of the night. It's probably 1 a.m. And I'm like, I'm so close to home, but I'm not ready to go home yet. And I don't know what that means. And as I'm struggling with this, I come around a corner on this road in the middle of the desert, and this whole mountainside is on fire. It's just engulfed in flame. And rising up behind the mountain is this whole full moon, like just right behind those flames. And I was like, that was it.
That was your message.
I didn't know that's what I was looking for, but that's what I was looking for. And I'm ready to go home. And, nothing fundamentally changed. On paper, nothing changed. But in my soul, I was like, that was what I needed to nourish myself. So very happily, I headed on back, and it was one of those times where I am kind of cleaning my stable of friends and associates, and take a nice step in a positive direction. But those are those moments that
Yes. I had
you,
goosies. Like I
yeah.
had goosies. Because metaphorically, like what that represents. And it's so interesting because I always feel like our spirit leads us. And this isn't like a religious thing. This is honestly like your spirit, your intuition. It tells you so much when you listen to it. And sometimes you listening to it, you're like, am I losing it? Like, well, why would we do this? Well, why don't we just chill out for a little bit? And your spirit is like, no, we're not ready. Like, you haven't found it yet. You haven't reached that place yet. I haven't like scratched the itch yet. And for you to come around and be like, wow, like it's not really that bad, huh? Like it's not as bad as I thought it was.
I firmly believe that when you're on the right path is not always easy. It is often not easy, but it is evident. And so I try to be mindful for those types of signs that, yes, you're on the right path,
I love that. And I love the fact that one, you need to coin that, the is not easy. Like you think that if I say yes right now to this thing, then everything's good. If I say no to this thing right now, everything's good. But I always talking about walking through fear with faith. Like I don't know what I'm trying to touch. I don't have a tangible answer for you. I couldn't answer you right now to tell you what I'm looking for. But once I touch that thing, once I feel that feeling, I'm going to be able to get you closer to where I want to be. And it's steps. Like growth is all about steps, because the 18-year-old you and the 28-year-old you were so very different in confidence, resilience, and probably, like you said, your friend group. It was probably very different in where you went. So how did becoming a tech, like how did that change your mental toughness, and how did that really help set you free in your career?
Well, in high school, I had wanted to take shop class as an elective, and my parents said, no, girls don't take shop class, full stop. So, it was always something that kind of spoke to me, but I was told it wasn't for me. So when I went to Motorcycle Mechanics Institute, I had no experience whatsoever. I mean, I had a very basic idea of like a wrench versus a screwdriver. But in that first couple of months at school, I was like, the amount of ignorance is bliss that went into me not dying on this motorcycle for lack of maintenance. Like now I understand all the things that could have gone wrong. It's just shocking. But as you know, I went in and embraced and was happy to say, look, I don't know. I am starting from scratch and I am just here to be a sponge. I want to learn everything you have to teach me. And it took a little bit of time for me to really embrace this. What are you talking about? Girls don't turn a wrench. There's not girl thing or boy thing. There's the thing that speaks to me. So
Mm-hmm.
it really again, like you kind of have these incremental bits of growth, and then you have just kind of these big jumps every once in a while. And for me, that was one of those big jumps, and it certainly wasn't easy. Definitely at that point in my career, like early 2000s, still there was very, very few women that
Oh,
were
mm-hmm.
motorcycle mechanics. Especially there was lots of men who felt very happy to say, I will never have a woman touch my bike, I will never have a female in my shop, I don't want you in here screwing up all of the chi of machismo and testosterone we've got. And there are laws in place to prevent this, and people were still very, very emboldened.
Yes.
And I just found this voice that was like, who are you to tell me what to do? Who are you? So I took it upon myself to be a woman in this industry. I need to be twice as good to be equal, and so I'm going to be twice as good.
See, and
So
I and I love that because again, we're seeing how Wendy, young Wendy, was like, okay, so you guys know that I already saw death, right? Like you don't understand that I've already faced the panel and I made it out. It is
mm,
very few people. If I already told my parents no, there's you guys have no choice at this point. Like you're not gonna make it. You're not gonna make it out. And I feel like for me, that is that when we talk about skill sets that you can't teach, that is how leadership is set. That's how we become like empower we build no. That's how we encourage other people to feel emboldened and powerful in themselves. Like sometimes you are the martyr for the generation. Sometimes you are
mm,
the voice, even though your voice sounds squeaky in certain places. When you go to the next place, it's like the most powerful thing that's out there. So, like, how did organizing bike rides and kind of, I know that we were talking, you said you used to wait for people to ride with you. And then at some point, you just was like, what the hell? You know what? Bye. See you later. Like, we'll see you soon. So,
yeah.
talk to us about you organizing rides and how that really helped you get to a place where you were like, I don't need anybody's approval. I'm going to do it. Join me or, get off the bus.
Yeah, and that's, a lot of us, again, especially when you're finding motorcycling or any hobbies for the first time as an adult, you have this group that's around you, and they're often groups of circumstance and convenience. And as I was embracing motorcycles more in my life, and I have more motorcycle people around me, um, I was like, this is awesome. Like, my whole life is going to revolve around motorcycles. And, all right, guys, let's, go for a ride this weekend, and kickstands up at 8 o'clock. And then it's like, man, it's noon. Where are you guys? Are we doing this or what? And as my confidence grew as a rider and my confidence grew as a mechanic, so, I could be fairly self-sufficient, I was like, what am I doing standing around asking for permission from these guys? Like, I'm gonna go at 8. And if you want to ride with me, you be here at 8. But the thing is, when women do that, what they call leadership in men, they call being bossy in women.
Yeah.
And so I'm being bossy by having everybody, need to be here at 8 o'clock. And so I take off by myself. And what is, strong and solo in a man is lonely and pathetic in a woman. And it's, looking at those labels that they want to put on us and going, I don't accept this. I'm sorry. I
Like I'm a
am
lonely
under.
and pathetic myself into award winning.
Yeah.
See you guys later.
Yeah. No, I am to embrace just being happy by myself, if that's what it meant. I am perfectly content to enjoy this by myself. I am happier than I would be sitting here waiting to receive permission. So,
Oh my gosh. Yes, I love that. And what would you tell a woman who's waiting for validation? Like, what would be steps that, in hindsight, what would be steps that you would say, okay, I would have really kind of focused on this particular thing, or I would have focused on learning more about myself? What would you say to someone who kind of is trying to figure out what their vision of validation looks like?
I do think about that a lot. I think about all these aspirations I had when I was younger, but I didn't have the confidence to do those things. And I don't see a way where young Wendy could have just thrown caution to the wind and traveled the world by motorcycle. I needed to build confidence. I needed to have these baby steps. And so, I mean, as trite as it sounds, where those big jumps were great, where, being in that accident had the option to either be a big jump up or a big jump down. Being in school and being told that women don't do this could have been a big step up or a big step down. But sometimes the best you can do is baby steps. Sometimes the best you can do is a little bit of bossy or a little bit of solo or a little bit of I don't care what you say, right? While those big steps, you be ready to embrace them when the opportunity comes along, but build little steps every day.
I love that. And it's so interesting because we're in a time where supposedly there's an epidemic of lonely men and
Mm.
independent women who just don't know that they need to be married. Supposedly it's sitting out there. Why aren't you following us? Why aren't you getting to a place where you understand that this community, it's about uplifting us, it's about educating us, it's about us having fun, it's figuring out who we are and where we want to be in life, and it's learning how to heal through conversations with people who are just, they are riding full stop into the next best thing in their life. Crying now, tears and drinking them every day, waiting for somebody to show up and love us. But it's interesting watching. There's an actress, Tracy Ellis Ross, Donna Ross's daughter, who has really embraced. She says she missed her time to have a child because she was waiting around for things, and now she's at a place in her life where she's in her 50s, I believe, and she learned how to solo travel. She's learning how to really just embrace not needing to be with someone, but enjoying the company of people, say, if they need. And one of her tips was, she's like, hey, if you don't know what it feels like to eat by yourself, go to lunch by yourself on a Tuesday, just at 1 o'clock, just a half an hour. She was like, and when you get really bold, go to dinner at 8 o'clock by yourself at a restaurant, and it really is those little steps. It's celebrating the small wins in your life that nobody else gets to see. You kind of stepping into your independence. It could be small things. I know that we always make we need to have these big revelations that we can put on YouTube or Instagram, but really it's like wearing your favorite color, even though somebody tells you, oh, I don't like that color on you. It's learning that you get to, if you decide you want to bodybuild. If you don't like it, stop. Like sometimes the win is that you stop doing something that doesn't help you get to the next level. And it can be hard because a lot of women are taught that we don't deserve love unless we provide a service, be it a baby or, you know, uh, being the best secretary. You can't be more than a secretary because who would want to listen to a woman? We kind of we already run this a little bit, like a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And when we're not in something, you really can tell the difference versus when a woman steps into that space. So
Yep.
let's talk about what has surprised you about the motorcycle community, especially being a woman in the environment that you've created around you.
Um, I haven't been an extremely brash person, I don't feel like. And I feel like that has helped a lot of people to realize that they are being judgmental, or they are making assumptions about me as a mechanic. And that has very slowly, kind of just helped to change perception, with all these women out there that are just kind of quietly doing their thing. But to be open, and you touched on this a little bit before, like, just go out to eat at 8 p.m. and be happy by yourself. One of the things with motorcycles and being out there by yourself is people feel free to engage with you in a way that they definitely don't if you're in a big group, if you're in a car, if you seem otherwise engaged. And that has been some of the most wonderful experiences in my life. And that's, I have a book about the Guinness World Record ride we did. And the,
Wait till
the
she
book
tells you
is,
about this. It's insane. It's so insane.
it's, it is about the two of us that are just too crazy to know when to stop. But more than that, it is about all of the people around us that had no idea what we were doing on this ride until we opened up and asked for help. And all of the people in this community, tangentially around this community that we just happened to cross paths with, that are so excited to be some little part in our little adventure. That is really a gift
Yeah.
to allow yourself to be open to that. So that has been, when I first started taking long trips by myself, my mom was very worried, and she says, well, what will you do if something goes wrong? And I said, don't worry about it, because you're out on a bike, other bikers will always stop to help you. And she goes, you talk to bikers? I said,
I'm one, mom. I'm one.
you,
I am a
you had
biker.
you had the wrong takeaway, mom.
But you're not a biker. You ride motorcycles. Come on, work with me. Get close. You're getting so close, mom. You're so close.
Yep.
But I will say that what I've learned about the motorcycle community is that your bike neutralizes everything.
Yes.
Your bike speaks for you in a way that you would, some of the people that you are introduced to, just the stereotypes that kind of click into place. Now, there's a bad worm everywhere. No matter who you are, if people with bad intentions have bad intentions, it doesn't matter if they're on a bike or in a car or walking down the street. But what I've learned in the motorcycle community is that once you're on two wheels, we're family. I didn't want to be your cousin, but now I'm your cousin, and now now we're all sitting together enjoying each other's company. But it really just creates such a very warm and inviting space majority of the time. I will say that out of all the times that I've ridden with my husband, we've probably had, and this has been since 2017 that I've ridden with my husband. He rode before me, but I've had like one or two times where something was off, and it was the person, not the group itself. So it has been a very friendly space for me. But also, I don't start talking to me about a throttle. I can't help you out. I'm not. So what kind of bike do you guys ride? I'm just like, I just point to my husband. I'm like, well, it's a BMW, or it's a Harley. Nope, it's an Indian. No, I don't even know we're riding anymore, because my husband buys bikes like people buy Pez dispensers. He will trade in a bike. He's like, no, I want to know what this bike feels like. Well, I want to know what this bike. So you saying I've been riding, I'm like, I keep looking at pictures, and you've been riding your same blue motorcycle, right? I'm like, my husband would have eaten this motorcycle alive and started a new one. But I
So
feel like the longer you ride a bike, the more it becomes a part of who you are.
full transparency, I actually have 8 of those same
You know
motorcycles.
what? Okay, so you are a part of the problem as well. All right, so it's
I
the group.
I am part of the problem. we've got 14 motorcycles right now. So they all do something fun.
Well, you know what? I'm going to give you a pass because when you are when you're talking about riding 80,000 miles, did you ride 80,000 miles? Well, you and Ian, did you guys ride 80,000 miles on one bike?
So we had 2 separate bikes. Um, and what we actually did is we rode about 100,000 miles in 6 months. But the Guinness World Record was the longest continuous journey in a single country. So the only miles that counted towards that record were in the United States. So we rode all of the 49 states plus Washington, D.C. in alphabetical order by state, and then visited the capital of each state. Um, and then we did that on 2 separate bikes. So I had my Yamaha FJR and he was riding a BMW. But
Okay. All
yeah.
right. My brain, literally, my brain just like it, the nerd kicked in. All right. So tell us. So how did you plan this? What was who was the mastermind behind this? And what kind of environments did connect with? What, like, tell us about the trip itself. 80,000. Listen, it's more than 80,000 miles. It was like 80,000 rather than 86 and something. And I was like, I can't get past 250. Like,
So Ian McPhee was my riding partner. He was a competitor of mine in various long distance riding events. And he called me up one day and he's like, look, I have this idea for a ride and I want to visit 49 states. And I'm like, that's boring. That's been done. And he goes, I want to do it in alphabetical order and visit the capitals of each one. And I'm like, well, that sounds stupid. Let's do it. So we start kind of planning it out. And he and I had only ever ridden against each other as competitors. We'd never ridden with each other before. And he is Australian. So we decided that we would also ride the Australian states in alphabetical order as well as a shakedown ride. Make sure that we can ride well together when we're doing it on purpose. And then in the very early planning stages, the pandemic hit. So then he was locked down in Australia. We had a couple of years to make this bigger and crazier than originally planned. And so at some point in one of our planning sessions, I was like, I wonder what the Guinness World Record is. And nobody had set this record as a team before. And at the time, the individual record was in the ballpark of 70,000 miles. We said, well, that's barely above. It was about 66,000 miles and change to do the states alphabetically. So we just pack a little more on the side, we'll be fine. And then we decided I have another friend who is a double amputee, and he had a Guinness World Record riding solo all around the world as a double amputee. So we were going to match the miles of his world record and end the ride at his house.
mm-hmm.
So that's how we got to our final plan. It was supposed to be 83,000 miles in 78 days. Ian is also a mechanic, so we left a few days buffer in there to do our own maintenance and whatnot. So that was a fabulous plan that lasted 70 miles from home as I was towing our bikes to the starting line, and I totaled my car on a deer's face. And there was literally like not a single 72-hour period of time in this entire ride that something did not go catastrophically, show-stoppingly wrong. But, I'm sitting there in the middle of South Dakota on the blackest of nights with my car vomiting up its coolant and oil. And I'm on the phone with Ian going, at least we got all of our bad luck out of the way early. And we said that at least once a day for 6 months straight. So like,
you wrote the book Pushy Miles. Like, sometimes you have to, we always talk about, you have to go through it. Like, so many of us want to help our children avoid um the trials and tribulations of life. But as we know, you have to go through it. You have to find your path. You really have to figure out ways to, even when you want to cry and do it anyway. When you are scared to speak, say it while your voice is shaky. Like, learning how to get through that fear with the faith that you're going to come out on the other side. Because it's, I keep referencing back to young Wendy, but I'm like, you guys need to understand, when you are in a car accident that's that catastrophic, everything else, you're like, you wake up and you're like, I made it through that day of horrible pain where I was on pain meds and throwing up and I couldn't go to the bathroom by myself and somebody had to wipe me. God, why? To the people that I know had to cut my clothes off. We were never that close. Like,
Yes.
you know what I mean? Even going through childbirth and just being in the hospital with like a doctor elbow deep, just, and then trying to talk to you in a regular tone. You're like, sir, we go together now. I mean, I know I'm married, but like, we're in a relationship at this point, at least until I leave here, or ma'am, you and me until the end. Like, it's just the way it works. But realizing that you had to go through all of those different trials and tribulations to even instill more confidence in yourself, to build up your self-esteem, your self-worth, to have that self-awareness, to learn to trust yourself so much more. So like, tell us about what it was like writing Pushing Miles.
Well, we had, going into this ride, Ian and I both had more than 1,000,000 miles, independently. Both of us are mechanics. Both of us have been in many, many long distance competitions. So our idea of nothing really going wrong is like, I've had stators fail on my bike and I've replaced that on the side of the road. For a lot of people, that would be a showstopper, but it's nothing, flat tires and broken cables. And this is all just par for the course and it's all surmountable. So we had not, either of us had anything that was really, truly insurmountable in our careers. Everything can be fixed with enough tenacity and enough money. You can keep going. So we figured there wouldn't be anything really compelling to write about. People often tell me I should write a book, and I'm like, I don't have much to talk about because everything generally goes pretty well in my writing career. So we had decided we were going to make a coffee table book. And each day we would have 2 opposing pages, and one would be his favorite picture or anecdote, and one would be mine. And so that would be our ride. It's just like, a nice little coffee table book. So as the ride is progressing, and we've just got this cascade of things that are going wrong, and I'm at one point, like 6 weeks in, I'm like, this isn't slowing down. Like, we need to start keeping better notes about all of this stuff that's going wrong. So some of it, in the very beginning of the ride, we went back, we both carried trackers for Guinness, and we kind of went back through our trackers and our messages to our families going, here's what blew up or fell off today. And recreated those stories. And then we kept that idea of having every day is his voice and my voice. And some days we are perfectly in sync. He calls us Siamese twins from long lost Siamese twins from different mothers. And some days, like, we just don't talk to each other all day. We cannot see eye to eye. And most of the time, as this stuff was going wrong, if one of us was down, it would be one or the other of us that was down, and the other's job was to be the comedian and be the optimist and help buoy the other back up. But there were a couple of days in there where it's like, I don't think we can get past this. I don't think we can solve this problem. And when we finished writing this book, we sat back and said, do we want to share something so raw about ourselves with the world? Because once this is out there in the world, we can't take it back, and it really is brutally raw and honest. And there was many days where we were not the hero in our own story, and we decided, if it's a story worth telling, it's a story worth telling honestly, because
Mhm.
you don't need to ride a motorcycle, I think, to appreciate this book. And we deliberately picked editors that didn't ride motorcycles, because everyone can relate to that feeling that you're on a road trip with your family, and I'm like, I am going to dump all y'all out in the desert and I'm moving to the Bahamas and you're never going to hear from me again, right? And at the end of the day, everything is okay again, because that's just that interpersonal connection. It's not perfect all the time, and if you tell us it is, it's a lie, right?
Absolutely. And I think that what
So,
it does, what for me, I'm all about telling people, when we're talking about intimacy, I want you to take sexuality off of the table, right? There is something so intimate about connecting with a person, especially a stranger, quote unquote. Like, being an acquaintance is very different than you seeing
mm,
me day in, day out, cycling, crying, or just at the height, sunburned, smelling like, don't come over here. Okay. I just need you to stay over there. Or I don't want to be friends with you today. I don't like me today, and I can't like you today. Like, I need a moment, and just understanding how we're not linear as people, right? We go up and down, we have our own moments. And 6 months together, how intimate that relationship is, even if you never saw each other again after that. But that being able to connect on that platonic in that platonic space, that by itself is a story that so many of us will never understand, because it's always, oh, if it's a woman and a man, they have to be going together. It has to be a relationship. She has to depend on him, versus we can't just be equals out here doing the thing together,
right.
or I'm 80% today and he was 20%, or vice versa. We had these moments. So I think that for the audience, just even reading the book Pushing Miles, it gives you an idea of what it's like to build trust in present time. As we're riding, I'm learning to trust you or question you, and then
Mm-hmm.
question myself, and then question to like be very present when we're talking about mindfulness.
Yeah. And there were definitely times we both made mistakes, but even finding the ability to admit that I have made a mistake to somebody that, like you said, we were acquaintances when we started this ride, and to just say, I have let you down and I acknowledge that, and I am really sorry for the role I played, and let's figure out how to move forward. Every single day you got to keep those wheels turning. We don't have time in this plan to sit and wallow in the mistakes that we're making. They're following us down the road, and it's being able to be open, being able to ask other people for help, being able to admit we've got things going on here that are we can't solve ourselves. All of those things, I think, are ideas that people can relate to,
No,
motorcycles aside.
no, I agree with that. And so, what kind of legacy do you want to leave behind for yourself and your family, when it comes to like breaking barriers in any field, or really just learning how to trust yourself, and listening to your own voice, your own inner dialogue, and learning how to switch those negative thoughts into more positive, not toxic positivity. Everything's not always okay, but just learning how to
Right.
flip the script and reframe your thinking.
Well, I will tell you, I have a lot of people tell me that I am an inspiration. I am a trailblazer. However, things that I have done have affected them. And I have a little girl, she's 10 years old, and she hears that. And I like to tell her, it is important to have an impact. It is important to uplift women in the world. But a lot of the women who made an impact in our country are the women that risked arrest by wearing pants, are the women that risked arrest by riding motorcycles, are the women that fought for our right to vote, the women that fought for a lot of the freedoms that we are taking for granted, that are in limbo right now. Those women you've read about in history books, and those women were just as real as you and I are. They fought just as hard to get us what we have today. So my daughter enjoys riding motorcycles with me, and I brought her on a trip to Pakistan. And
That's a
we,
family trip right there.
yeah. And so, there's not a lot of Western travelers, not a lot of young girls. And we went to a place way up in the mountains, in a place called Hunza Valley. And we met with a woman who had started her own restaurant. And she's telling my daughter, um, I went to school and I learned how to cook, and I started my business here. I was the first woman in this entire valley to start her own business. And people would spit on me in the street. They would graffiti my business. They set my business on fire. They would scream at me. And I went home in tears every single night going, why do I do this? This is giving me chills again. And she's like, there is another woman in this town who owns a business now, and that's why I did it. And so that the things that I have done, I feel like are the tiniest drop in the bucket. And I'm really excited that it gives women, they feel like Wendy is crazy, but I can do this. Definitely. I can take 2 steps, towards that goal that scares me. But for the things that I have done to have given my daughter the opportunity to talk to a woman who is changing her world today, that is changing the future. That is impacting my daughter. That is impacting our daughters, to see that this fight isn't done. There's a lot of work to be done at home, all around the world. And so that's what I feel like my impact is talking to these girls and going, you know what, it's not done. We need to look up to these women today and the struggles that they have on behalf of all of us.
No, I love that. And yes, you are an inspiration. And yes, you're making an impact, and a huge impact. Yes, it feels like a drop in the bucket because we're kind of taught that we're supposed to humble ourselves, but you've done so many amazing things. And you really mirrored the reason why I started this podcast was because I wanted to see women who looked like us talk about the things that affect us, the failures, the successes, the mental fights that we go through, how we've fallen absolutely face first into a pile of crap and still woke up the next day. How we've, succeeded, and we've changed laws, we've changed the ideas of people, we've changed our environments. Sometimes how we had to change ourselves and how we looked at ourselves, how we spoke to ourselves. Because I think we have especially in this day and age, we have this instantaneous, everything has to be instant. It's like, everything is a cup of noodles. And if it's not done that soon, we kind of freak out. But also just saying to our daughters, like you said earlier in the podcast, there's no him or her. It's whatever you decide to do. You dictate how you want your life to look. And if you like it, great. If you change your mind, great, but you tried it, right? And I think that that's one of the things that just really is a full circle moment for so many of us. I have a daughter, and I also have a son, and then I have a transgender son. And watching my transgender child go through all of the things that they go through, and then being in an environment where they're not even considered human in so many other spaces, and like learning how to redefine how I advocate and fight for a person, because somewhere in the world there is a young girl who said, this isn't my body, but they don't have the right to say this is my body. So like just understanding the privilege we have to move about and talk about these things and make such a big difference in the world. And I don't want to leave us, because we were talking about throttle therapy, right? What it looks like to create your own version of throttle therapy. And Wendy is going to read us an excerpt and really just connect with us what it means for women to discover their own version of throttle therapy.
Yeah, so I had written this um following a event that I was actually the first woman to win, called the Iron Butt Rally. And again, what actually prompted this is my husband had posted on Facebook, very proud of me. And somebody, there's always somebody with an attitude that said, dude, you let your wife do that? I would never let my wife do that. And my husband said, dude, have you met my wife? I don't let her do anything. So, in response to the naysayers saying there's only one right way to get out there and find your freedom, I wrote this. Endurance riding isn't for everyone. We're the 1% of the 1%, and even that is probably a pretty generous figure. Not everyone understands why we do what we do. Some people don't care at all. Some are intrigued while acknowledging that it's not something they'd personally pursue. And some are quite vocal in declaring that this is not the right way to be riding a motorcycle. No one is obligated to condone or participate in endurance riding, but I thought I might shed a little light on why I personally love this type of riding in the context of the 2019 Iron Butt Rally. In the course of these 11 days, I watched the sun rise over the vast, rugged Nevada desert. I watched the sun set from the lush beauty of the Gaspé Peninsula. I felt the weight of a deep, moonless night in one of the most distant corners of the Everglades. I felt the buzz of humanity in a traffic jam in Washington, D.C. at 1 a.m. on a Friday morning. You can do any of those things right now, should you desire. Load up, head out, and be confident that you can have those experiences at your leisure. I also rode some roads that you almost certainly will never ride because there is absolutely no good reason to be there. I rode nearly 100 miles north of an already far-flung town on virtually flawless asphalt to reach a small informational sign overlooking a remote dam. Aside from being a dam employee, there is no logical reason to travel this road. And yet there I was, with freshly laid blacktop unfurling along the shores of a stunningly beautiful reservoir, beams of sunlight stabbing through silver skies to highlight the perimeter of rugged, verdant cliffs deep in the Canadian Rockies, and I had it all to myself. I reached the terminus of this quest, snapped a quick picture, and saddled up for the return journey. In what seemed like only minutes, I reached a sign indicating that I would be intersecting the main highway in 20 kilometers, and I was legitimately disappointed. I was in the middle of nowhere with no practical reason to be there, and I was disappointed that this amazing bit of moto perfection was coming to an end. But you could go there. If you'd like to go to Mica Dam, you certainly could put that on your bucket list. But there's more to it than that. At some point, I couldn't tell you exactly where, I was riding in the rain in the middle of the night when the wind shifted just so, such that the only sound, the only sensation in the world was the quiet pull of my tires against wet pavement. I was riding through a misty dawn when I came upon a moose in a field of wildflowers, tall, willowy flowers in every imaginable shade of red, pink, orange, purple, and white, simply enjoying her breakfast and regarding me with the same fascination with which I regarded her. I've had just exactly the right song show up on my playlist at just exactly the right minute, as though the cosmos was telling me that this is precisely where I was intended to be at this very moment in time. I've watched the breathtaking symphony of distant thunderstorms, powerful and beautiful and nearly impossible to capture in all of its majesty. It simply must be experienced and absorbed. I've had moments where the sky is so blue, the air is so still and warm, the ride so fluid and so effortless that the entire world melts away and I'm left with a calm focus that I can only imagine must rival the most ardent practitioners of meditation. I have formed connections with people who, outside of this pursuit, I never would have had occasion to meet. People who make my life richer, fuller, and more complete. This is my Zen. This is my release. This is my connection with that which is both greater than myself and deep within myself. You can't put those moments into your GPS. You can't plot a trip to the place where your soul will heal or grow or quiet or shout for joy. You just have to put yourself out there. Your place might come through hiking or biking, sailing or soaring, brushing the dog or holding your new grandchild. I hope you all have a space in the world where you find your best self. This is mine. On two wheels, exploring, experiencing, looking for any opportunity to avail myself of the majesty of the universe. The more you're out there, the greater the likelihood that these moments will find you. Rally riding is not for everyone, but it is right for me. Any excuse to be out there, leaning, twisting, seeing, smelling, feeling, focusing, absorbing. Any opportunity to be so overwhelmed by the majesty of it all that I have no choice but to hone in and thoroughly experience the precise splendor of this solitary moment. This is why I rally.
Um, oh my gosh, so many goosies, so many goosies. And it also brings me to the thought of like, okay, what's your favorite playlist? What does your favorite playlist when you're riding? What does that look like?
I tell people that I have eclectic taste in music, and they're like, I like two different cowboy bands too. And then I put on my playlist and it's like Phantom of the Opera and then Pantera and then Patsy Cline. And they're like, oh, that's not what I meant. But I mean, literally any genre, any type of music, if I move into it when I'm on the bike, and if I have music on, I want it to be engaging. So I want it to,
Absolutely. What's the
yeah.
song that gets you through a hard ride? What's like the one song that would get you through a hard ride?
I have a few good ones, but there's a version of Express Yourself that I just love. And that is one that I will never not be dancing on the bike. So, but I've got, I have a good handful of those couple of songs that you always have to sing to. You always have to
Just have
get
to bob
moving
your
to.
head when you're looking.
Yeah.
What's your favorite ride snack?
Um, I try to uh keep all of my food very diet friendly. It's for long distance rides especially, so you don't eat a bunch of greasy stuff or fatty stuff. So I like carrot sticks travel well. Apples travel pretty well. They're pretty tank bag friendly. Um, I've got some organic nut butter that you can
Mm-hmm.
get in little packages that you can eat easily on the bike. And um, nut butter and apples go really well. You can
Yes,
eat
they do.
together on the road. So yeah, I do try my best. And luckily more and more there's truck stops and gas stations have good fruit options and things like that.
I
So
love that. So, what tool would you never leave home without?
Leatherman, 100% of the time. There's a lot of different types of multi-tools. So definitely if you are going to go out and pick up a multi-tool, play with a bunch of them. You don't need the one that has a bunch of stuff like for getting fish hooks out. Like make sure you've got one that's got the tools you need. I never ever leave home without my multi-tool, and I have something called a cruise tool, and they have a different type of multi-tools. They have them in metric and standard, and it has just basic screwdriver stuff, basic socket drivers, things like that. Between those two tools, I can fix 80% of what ails me on the road.
I love
So
that. What's your superpower in 3 words?
I ride far.
And if your bike could talk, what would it say about you?
I hate you so much.
Get off me. Why are you
Get
on me
off
again?
me. We're doing this again.
And yes, we are. And we're going to enjoy it. You're going to like it. That's why I always said back in the day when you would do something as a young child, your parent would be like, but did you die though? But do we have to? The bike is like, please let me go. Let me go. Ride another. There's 14 other bikes here. Find another guy.
I love you best.
No, but thank you so much for being a part of this podcast. I'm going to tell you what I learned. One, I learned that your eyes light up when you talk about the difference, the different atmospheres that you travel, the different environments, like when you get to see the sunset, when you get to see the sunrise, like it looks different in your eyes. And I love those moments. And when you talk about your daughter, but that's, we start bragging on our kids and stuff. It gets all weird on us, but which is great. But I love that you have learned how to connect with nature in a way that it fits you, but it's not unobtainable for anybody else. Your message isn't ride a bike, or it's like whatever you do, make it as enriching as possible, make it as connective as possible. Touch the dirt every once in a while. Just try it. You just happen to touch dirt with two wheels, and you guys, when y'all ride. And when y'all excited. Are you a hard leaner? You a knee scraper?
I do. Yeah, aggressive cornering. I often do.
But no, I truly appreciate you pushing Miles. Please, it's on Amazon and
Yep, it's on Amazon, Barnes and Noble, Apple Books.
And check out Wendy's Wikipedia page. Please. Like, we didn't even talk about the awards that you won. Which was like, I'm like, okay, award-winning, Guinness award-winning, Guinness award-winning. I'm like, okay. Because you deserve to. You deserve to talk about your awards and stuff. It's just, we're out here. And I love to see it. So tell people the next thing that's up for you, or where they can contact you, or are you speaking anywhere?
I will be at the Women's International Motorcycle Association International Meet, which is in every year it's in a different country around the world. And this year it happens to be in Maine. So I would really encourage, if anybody is looking for a great place to ride, it is not for women. It's for women and their friends, significant others, kids, parents, whoever wants to come out and enjoy some great riding and great camaraderie. I will be there doing mechanics workshops, and I will also be doing a presentation on the Guinness World Record ride. So, and I'll be there with my books. So that's, yeah, definitely going to be an amazing event. So check
when
that
is that
out.
again?
That is September 7th through 13th of this year.
In May. Listen, you may be able to get a nice autograph. Yes. You can shake hands, take a little picture, do a little selfie. And
Definitely.
also learn some things about your motorcycle, because I feel like the way you maintenance your motorcycle, it really can reflect how you feel in life, and just taking care of yourself and really being very cognitive of just looking at your motorcycle as your health, right? If you take care of your motorcycle, it will take care of you in so many facets. And that's in life. If you take care of yourself, your body will take care of you in so many facets, and so will your mind. So we appreciate you guys for being here, and we look forward to talking to you guys soon. Bye. So guys, what was your takeaway from this podcast? What was your takeaway from this? I will tell you the 3 things that my coach's corner would really lock in on. A, finding your joy. You have to find your joy unapologetically, and just understand that sometimes you finding your joy means you're going to have to leave behind what doesn't work for you. My next thing would be, don't worry about perfection. It's not going to be perfect. This story of ours, it's about the imperfections of life. It's about discovering more things about yourself. It's about fighting your fear and really learning how to LOL, live out loud. I'm sorry. I know I was corny. I didn't mean to. And I would say it's about understanding your truth. Your truth is for you. And sometimes you're going to have to go against the grain in order to get to a place where you feel happy and fulfilled, where you aren't fighting to use your voice. If your voice is shaky and you still have to talk, let it shake anyway. Be scared anyway. Do it anyway. Be afraid anyway, and still fight to get your truth out there. I'm so big on us learning how to articulate our feelings, wants, needs, and desires, because I know that advocating for ourselves is the best way for us to heal and walk on this healing journey to get to a thriving part of our life. And understanding that thriving doesn't mean that bad things aren't going to happen. It doesn't mean that you're not going to be fearful of certain things. It doesn't mean that you're not going to have bumps in the road. But when you can advocate for yourself and you articulating how you truly feel and you're in your truth, it makes it so much easier for you to get to the next level, for you to fight for yourself and the people that you love, for you to ride your ride. And Miss Crockett she is riding her ride, and she fitting to ride again about 13,000 miles just for the giggles and kicks. Listen, 250. I want my husband to pull over, get a hotel room. I'm telling. But Miss Crockett, she said she's gonna ride her ride, and she's gonna prove to everybody else that they can ride their ride too. Don't forget to like, share, and follow. We really appreciate you. We want you to be a part of our community. I'm just saying, like, why aren't you following us? Why aren't you getting to a place where you understand that this community, it's about uplifting us. It's about educating us. It's about us having fun. It's figuring out who we are and where we want to be in life. And it's learning how to heal through conversations with people who are they are riding full stop into the next best thing in their life. So I'll talk to you guys soon. Lovely out. Thank you so much for joining us. We hope you found some healing, connection, and joy. Until next time, bye, loves.